right, welcome back, everybody, for another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those things you got to get lucky, do some legwork, and really do some work in tracking them down, as these aren't books you're just going to find every day when you're out there hunting. Hopefully, you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on the channel. Let me know what you think in the comments section. If you have any suggestions of books you want to see on this list, please provide them in the comments. Plenty of you have given me suggestions, and you've seen that I've used them, and I've given you credit when I can. So feel free. Throw some ideas down below. Granted, I still got a nice list of books that I still need to cover, even though we are 105 or so episodes in already. Still got plenty more coming your way. So let me know what you think in those comments section. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Believe me, those actually do help us with the algorithm when you do all of those things. So please help us out and help spread the word so we can keep growing the channel as we are on our way to 3K. And with that said, I got a note that you guys like the summer schedule, so we're actually going to maintain it going forward for a little while longer at least. So I'm going to keep flip-flopping Hidden Gems and Chasing Ghosts on Tuesday and leave the Wednesday watch list as the show that drops on Mondays. With that extra bit of time, I guess I will have back by doing that. I might try out a few other things. Like I said, I've been doing polls on the IG Rennavision chat. So those of you that are part of it, feel free to take part of the polls. But so far, I've heard toys is the top extra bit of content. So maybe I'll try to work something in with toys again. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens as the school year is starting and we refresh and redo. It's like a new season here. And with that all said, I'm not going to keep you any longer. If you want to see what books I have for you this week, just hang up for a few seconds after the intro, and I will be right back. Okay, so it's been a while since I've done sort of a special edition episode. I do a Star Wars special every quarter thereabouts. So every couple of months, I try to do like a Star Wars special. But today, I felt like we needed another special because it's been a while. I did one of these a few months ago. I think it was episode 66, if I'm not mistaken. So it's been a while. So let's do another Spawn special. There are a lot of very, very tough to find Spawn books. There is an avid and rabid fan base for Spawn books. And some of these books, while they may not be as low printed or as rare as some of the other books we've talked about here on the show, but I will tell you the demand is there because some of these books are expensive. So I mentioned it plenty of times before. Rarity alone does not equate to value, but I mean, this is a supply and demand, marketplace. So a lot more demand than there is supply for a lot of these Spawn books. So let's get into the ones that we have here. I'm going to be showing you a lot of the color versions of these because this selection of books has a lot of black and whites because that's what they were doing for the incentives for a run there on Spawn. So we're going to start off here with issue 200. Milestone issue for Spawn, multiple covers. I'm not showing you all the covers. This isn't Hidden Gems. It's not one of the other shows. We're just talking specifically about the 1 in 25, which is this cover by Jim Lee and with inks by McFarlane. But the black and white version is the 1 in 25. So January 2011, this will be our first book. Hefty print run, milestone edition. So, milestone 200 issues. Print run bumps up a bit, and it has a decent number here with 65,000. So that would make our incentive a hefty 2,600, which is way more than we normally see on the books that we put on this list. But just because there's potentially 2,600 out there, again, this is Comic-Con estimated print run numbers, and we're doing the ratio math. These are not concrete set in stone numbers. There is no concrete and definitive answer to how many of these are out there. Just the best guess we have with the information that is out there for all. So with that said, once again, this is our best guess with the 2,600. But what we can tell you is that in the CGC census, there are a whopping 169 copies of this book for this sketch cover, this particular cover. Once again, multiple covers across the board. We're actually going to look at a couple of more of these in a minute. But the Jim Lee sketch version, 127 9/8, 28 9/6s, 10 9/4s, and then a couple of others filling out that 169. This book, does sell multiple sales over the last 3 months, and granted, this is not one of those super duper big boy books, but it can move. 66 bucks with 29 bids. A lot of action there. Best offer on 75 bucks accepted. I didn't bother digging in for the price there because I figured it's probably right around the same. And then we got that 9/8, only 130 bucks. So not too bad, I guess, for this book if you want to go and find it. Like I said, Spawn collectors, they try to collect everything. So yeah, that said, those are the prices for what's sold. But are there any available? Yeah, there actually are. These are just three. I believe I saw a few more than these. I'm gonna say less than 10, but it could have been more than 10 for all I know. But there was a decent number of this particular issue. Again, 2,600 is a higher number than we're used to, but still, you can see it's not that cheap. Even with what actually sold, 90 to 100 bucks raw is still a solid number for a 1 in 25. Just saying. And 200 bucks for a 9/8 there is the asking price. So those sales a little bit cheaper. The current asks listed are a little bit more. Not too dissimilar from what we see on most books. That said, this was one of the covers. There was also a McFarlane cover here. 200. Spawn holding up to 200. This is an image we're going to see again in a little bit too. But there was a 1 in 50 incentive that is a black and white version of this. Again, I've talked about it plenty of times. I'm not a huge fan of the black and white versions making the incentives, but hey, this is what they did. For a good long while, this was the thing that most publishers did. They did the black and white, and that's the incentive. Oof. Don't love it, but it is what it is. Still makes this pretty tough to find. So 1 in 50, January 2011. All the details are the same, 65,000. But since it's a 1 in 50, we're looking at half of the potential copies. Maybe only about 1,300 copies. That's a bit closer to what we look at here on this show. And with that said, 92 still in the census. So still 92, 68 9/8s, 17 9/6s, and a few others rounded out to make up that number. Not as many sales as we saw with the 1 in 25. Again, going to be less copies, so we're not going to see as much movement. But there was a best offer accepted on 200 bucks back on August 25th. Actually, only a couple of days ago. So only a few days ago, one of these sold for a best offer on 200 bucks. And as far as what's listed for sale, yes, there were copies listed. I found 3 actually. Just 3, but still found 3. And granted, they still wanted a decent amount for them. We've got 2 copies raw looking for $375 each. And then there was a 9/8 that only wanted $285. So if you were shopping, I'd say maybe go buy the 9/8 before you go buy the raws because it's already a 9/8. Chances of those raws being a 9/9 or a 10/0 are very, very slim. So don't pay that premium if you don't have to. Go get that 285. But with that said, we still got one more milestone issue. I told you there were a lot of covers. David Finch had one too. Pretty awesome. And even these regular covers here that I'm showing you, the color ones, not to say they're ghosts, but they're not that easy to find. They would fit more in the hidden gems kind of angle of, on this channel. But those still do all right too. We're, talking maybe like 25 bucks plus for just any of those covers because, again, Spawn collectors, they like buying Spawn books. And it's not easy to find a lot of these older ones. So keep that in mind. I mean, Spawn's been around now 30 plus years, right? Is it 30? Yeah, 91. No. Yeah. Yeah. Can't do math right now. Sorry, I just got home from work. I'm trying to get this done so I can edit it up and get it out to you guys for tomorrow. But with that said, color cover here. Black and white is, of course, as we've been going. This is the 1 in 100, though. So, same book, David Finch, 1 in 100, black and white, January 2011. Print run's still the same, so it being a 1 in 100, this one may only have about 650 or so copies. Not too shabby. In the census, a solid 105 still, though. A few more than the 1 in 50 for this 1 in 100, but 71 9/8s, 25 9/6s, and then a couple of others to make up that 105. I got a pair of sales that I found on eBay. The last 3 months, we had a Signature Series 8.5 that took a best offer on $300, and then there was a Raw that had 4 bids that got it all the way up to 216. But that was back in July, so not a ton of movement. Both sales actually were July, but there were 2 sales. And as far as what's listed, I did manage to find 2 copies. Now, as you can see, they are not cheap. Both of these copies want over $500. I mean, we have $513 out of the top one out of Canada, and then there's another one listed for basically $600 raw for both of those. Supply and demand, folks. Supply and demand. Not a lot of supply, but there is a decent amount of demand. That said, enough issue 200, enough. We'll move on to something else, and we're actually going to shift into one of the lowest ratios I think we've done on this show as far as doing incentives is a few issues later. So 216, so 16 issues later, the 20th anniversary is coming. This is that character, the Freak, on the cover. There was a black and white version of this as well, McFarlane. That was a 1 in 8. Why 1 in 8? I don't know. Seems like an oddball number to choose, but that's what they did. And I know he's even done this. Todd has done this kind of a weird ratios scattered throughout. Like there were some in the early 300s where they had some 1 in 5s, and I think there might have been even some 1 in 8s. I don't know. Just have some weird incentives where they just kind of throw a book out there. So maybe he just said, you know what, let's throw a black and white version of this out there, but let's not make it too hard to find. I don't know. But February 2012 on this book, print run dropped. Remember the milestone 200 was 65,000. This 16 issues later, a little more than a year later, 12,000. That's a pretty decent drop. Significant. So this incentive, even it being only a 1 in 8, is still about 1,500 copies. Potentially. Again, estimates. In the CGC census, however, there are only 75. And interesting that there are 25 9/8s, but 34 9/6s. So high grade seems to be tougher to get in this one. Maybe it's the black and white cover. Maybe it's that black border. It's susceptible to ticks. So hard to get that 9/8 for this book. And, there's a few others down there as well. But more 9/6s than 9/8s is interesting. We don't see that all that often. Copies have sold. This book does sell. I got at least 3 sales that I found in the last, couple of months here. All raw, 100, 110, $155. So once again, not cheap for a 1 in 8. The regular cover also does pretty well for this book because of the character, this Freak character. But this 1 in 8 does pretty well. Some are just listing as like a B cover, some just listed as variant. But from what I gather, this was a 1 in 8 incentive. That said, if you did want this, there are copies. There are more than the 3 I have here, but you can see 200 to 225 raw. These are just examples. 9/6s are also in that same kind of range. It's not a cheap book. I didn't see any 9/8s listed for sale at the time of when I gathered the snippets here, but raw was all kind of around that same ballpark. Right, there were some higher. There might have been 1 or 2 lower. I don't know, but bottom line, this is about $200. So once again, prices are pretty high on this. Now, with the 20th anniversary that was coming around, Spawn did a lot of homages, and I actually really like these covers. And I'm a little bit of a sucker for homages, but I did like what they did here. I do not have all of these books. I just don't. I don't even know if I have many, if any. I gotta say, I think I might have 1 or 2. I don't know, but we're not going to do them all. We can save these for another time because again, there's a good long stretch of maybe about 10 issues where they were doing homages here. So we're just going to do a couple just to kind of whet your appetite. Plus, I don't want to cover too many books on one show. Still trying to keep it to about 10 to 12. So even though we did 1 book at 3 covers so far, and we're only 4 books in, it adds up quickly. With that said, our next book that we're going to look at is 20th anniversary issue number 220, Spawn, doing its best Savage Dragon impersonation. I think it's kind of fun. Doing one of the old school Image number 1s, and I think it's kind of fun. I like it. I like this cover. But this is not the incentive. The incentive is the 1 in 25 black and white version of it, unfortunately. But hey, it is what it is. June 2012 on this book. Print run actually increases to 30,000. Again, it's an anniversary, 20th anniversary. So print run kind of bumps up here to 30,000. So our 1 in 25 incentive is about 1,205, roughly. In the CGC census, there are 83 with two 9.9s, 65 9.8s, 13 9.6s, and a couple others. But a couple of 9.9s on this one, and plenty of 9.8s. Interesting. And this is for the black and white cover, mind you. New copies, actually, of this book have sold the last 3 months. Found that kind of interesting, that nobody wanted to shell out the bucks for this one because, well, they are looking for some bucks for this. This is not a $25 book. This is not a ratio book. So let's see what is listed for sale. Did I find a bunch? I did not find a bunch, but I did find 2. Now, I want to preface this with, as you can see here, at the time when I did these snips, I grabbed these snips over the weekend on Sunday. I think Sunday morning, I was grabbing these, or Sunday afternoon. I don't know. It was on Sunday. Bottom line, it's on Sunday. I'm filming this Monday. You guys will see this Tuesday. However, at this time, and when I pulled the snips, we have one buy it now for $500 raw, and then there is an auction going. There's 19 bids on it already, but that auction is actually ending tonight as I'm filming this. This is supposed to end Monday night at 9:30 p.m. So by the time you guys watch this, that one won't be here. So once again, this is a game of timing. Had that one ended and we had one left, this could potentially have been called a ghost. But when I grabbed the information, there were 2. There's soon to be 1 listed, but for right now, there are 2. So just want to point that out because that that does factor in. This is just a snippet in time. This is just a moment in time. This isn't any sort of gold stamp standard that we're saying if a book is called a ghost or not. I'm just giving you information. You call it whatever you want. I just find it interesting, and I think is having this information will be helpful. And I am curious to see. It's already up over $200 with 19 bids, and it still had a day plus left at the time. So we'll see where that one ends in another couple hours. But that's what's listed. So there are 2. Up next, we have another 220, but it's the Youngblood homage, right? Kind of fun there. He's doing Rob Liefeld, but it's all Spawn type characters. Kind of like it. I like the Savage Dragon a little bit better, but I like Savage Dragon the comic better than I like Youngblood, so that also might make me a little bit partial. That said, this is one of the regular variants. Also does well on its own, but the black and white version of this book is the 1 in 50 on this issue 220. So with that, we're still looking at the same numbers, about 30,000, but the 1 in 50 here might only have about 600 copies, as opposed to the 1,200 of the last book. With that, there are 70 in census with 57 9.8s, 5 9.6s, 6 9.4s, and whatever left over. But interesting. Also, a couple of sales on this book the last 3 months. A 9.6 sold on August 13th for $500, and a raw copy sold back in May for $590. So not cheap at all. And as far as what's available, I'm sorry, the image I could find, this is the best I could do, kind of, and it stretches out and it's a little blurry when it's blown up, but not even a lot of good images of these books, which is also interesting. But with that said, what's listed for sale? I actually found a few. There's more than these 3. So despite it being, half available of the last book, where there was only 2 with 1 ending before this actually airs, this one had more than the 3 I'm sharing here. I want to say it was like half a dozen, but that's just going off the top of my my memory here. But still, $600 raw. That 9.8 looking for $900, and then a 9.8 signature series looking for $1,200. Just as example prices, but yeah, not cheap at all. But sticking with this book, we're not giving up on it. Similar to the 200th issue, we have Spawn holding up the 20th anniversary for issue 220, done by McFarlane. And Yes, the black and white version of this is the 1 in 75. So we got even a higher ratio than the last one. Still, June 2012. Print run is, the 30,000. So 1 in 75. We're looking at just over 400 for this one. With that just over 400, there's still 63 in the census for this sketch cover, 38 9/8s, 18 9/6s, and then a few others. I only found one sale of this book, and it was a 9/8 signature series that, again, this shows one bid, $500. I bet you, I didn't do the extra step of looking it up on 130, but if you did do that, I bet you there's a best offer accepted on this. It might even be higher than the asking price, because usually when you see a book like this sell and it says one bid, if the seller had it at auction with the best offer option, when that best offer option is accepted, eBay will only show it as the starting bid, as if it got one bid and that was the sale, even though that's not was actually accepted. So the price could be higher, it could be lower. We'd have to dig in to find that out. But just broad strokes, general info. Looks like one sale got 500 bucks. We can say it's at least 500 bucks. With that said, what's available if you wanted to go and buy this? Well, if you wanted this one, surprisingly, there's only one, and it's a 9/8. Granted, not the signature series, just a blue label 9/8, but it's listed for 800 bucks, and it has 13 watchers keeping an eye on this thing. So, like I said, not cheap for these Spawn books. With that, we're still not done. I know you probably want to be done. No more Spawn 220s, no more 20th anniversaries. Well, we got one more, and this is the interior artist gets a go on this 20th anniversary collector special. So this is not Todd doing this. Most of these books have been Todd, but not all of them. This is an homage to Spawn 1. It's kind of tough. You don't see it right away, but then once you do put them next to each other, you're like, oh, okay, I get it now. It is there. At least I didn't notice it right away. But this is Simon Kodransky, if I'm saying his name right. This is the 20th anniversary collector special. This was a limited edition kind of thing. And Kodransky was the interior artist at the time. He got to do this special cover that was limited to, from what I gathered, 2,500 copies. So not a tiny number. 2,500 is a decent number, but that's what I could find on this one. In the census, there are still 81 copies graded, 44 9/8s, 26 9/6s, and a few others. With there being 2,500 copies and this being like a special edition version, prices were surprisingly lower. I guess people weren't as excited about this as they are about those other books. So sales, I found a few. This is only moving around 30 to 50 bucks. Whether it be auction or buy it nows, you can see there. Most those are a couple of August sales, one sale in July. So still pretty recent there on the activity. And if you did want this, there were plenty of copies. Honestly, there are plenty of copies of this one out there. Just people not loving this one for one reason or another. Maybe it's because 2,500 seems like a ton, whatever. But prices mostly in that $30 to $40 kind of range. So we got 33 to 45, and then there's an outlier here, like 175 for that 9.8. If you're into that too. So that's what you're looking at if you want to go check the market out. But by and large, the 30 to 40 seems to be the median price for this book. Now, I mentioned they continued in with the homages here in this section. So we're going to do a couple more before we wrap up for today. Because I think we're most of the way through. I think we're like 2/3 of the way through at least. So we got another book here. Issue 221, the next issue. Amazing Fantasy, homage here with Spawn. This is cool, right? I mean, oh, sorry, here, let me put it up. So if you didn't see it, here it is, so you can see it. Pretty cool there. Once again, we're getting back to Todd doing this. And the 1 in 25 is, again, the sketch version of this. I've seen the version of this plenty, the regular color version. I just never wanted to shell out the bucks for it. Every time I've seen it, it's been like $50 to $75. I'm like, I like it, but I don't love it. I probably should have bought it at those prices, but it is what it is. Maybe one day I'll grab it. But I do not really want the 1 in 25 because, again, I don't like black and white. The art's not bad. I mean, Todd's a decent artist, but I just like the color. I like the color better. I like the finished product better. That's just a personal preference. With that said, this is still the tougher to find one. So, July 2012, McFarlane, 1 in 25. Estimated print run on this thing is only about 15, almost 16,000. So the incentive is only a little over 600. So definitely not a lot of these out there. CGC Census does have 94 copies because, well, it is an homage. It is homaging Spidey, McFarlane, Spawn, etc. There is a single 99, 65 98s, 18 96s, and then a few others, just kind of rounding out those census grades. 3 copies. 3 copies sold the last couple of months. Well, at least 3 copies example. I didn't actually give you the N more when there's sold copies because this is I'm just looking for kind of like again ballpark numbers. Give you a good sense of what this book kind of moves for. And the last couple of months in 98, sales have gone from 675, 699, and a best offer on $1,500. So we can easily tell you at least $700 seems to be around the price that this thing has been moving in a 9.8. With that said, copies available. Well, surprisingly, again, I figured this to be like, maybe 2, maybe 3, but there were again more than the 3 I have here. Again, not a ton more, I don't think. I want to say it was still around like half a dozen, but that's still plenty. Copies ranging from that was $1,000 98 that was ending. Oh, that was actually ending yesterday, so that one's probably done. As far as the auction goes, then there was a buy it now raw copy looking for $1,200, and then a signature series 98 looking for $1,750. Bottom line, this was like that. Like I said, the average price is so. This is not a cheap book, and most of them seem to be graded. So finding this raw is going to be kind of tough. With that said, we're moving to the next book. Todd does Spider-Man again with this homage here. Homaging, was this 316? ASM 316, that Venom cover. It's classic. I did have that Venom cover in a 9.6. I have a raw copy still, but I did get a 9.6. I thought I had a shot in a 9.8, but I only got a 9.6, and I actually sold it. I probably should have kept it, but, forget about that. I don't know why I'm getting sidetracked with the Venom talk here. We're here to talk about the Spawn book. So the Spawn book is issue 222. Tremor is back. Pretty cool. I mean, Todd homaging himself in this case. He's not that he hasn't done this before. He's done that plenty, especially with that Spider-Man 1. But 222, there is a black and white version. That's the one in 25. August 2012. Print run is down to about 18,000. Actually, I think it's up to 18,000. So print run actually popped up a tiny bit. So the incentive is at about 733. If we do that math. CGC census here, 66 copies. So 49 9.8s, 10 9.6s, and then a few others. So again, decent numbers, but it's McFarlane, it's Spawn. So I'm surprised it's actually not more. I would have assumed a lot of these would have been around 100 copies, but that's what's in there. With that said, we had 1 copy sold, and it sold in a lot. So back in, as it looks like, July 24th, this issue sold with another one at 25 for issue 229, which we will get to another day. So again, I told you, there's still another pile of these we can do. We'll do that sometime down the line because I don't want to double up and just keep going Spawn for weeks. So we'll save that. We'll do it in a while. So plenty more Spawn come your way. But that's what sold. But those 2 sold. Once again, it shows us 1 bid at $875. Could have been an offer. I just didn't have time to go digging into it, but still showing us $875 for the pair, which is not a small number at all. And if you want to see what's listed for sale, well, it's like the last one. There was more than the 3. And yeah, prices were not cheap. Once again, I think this might be the same seller, but there's one at auction was at 255 yesterday with 21 bids that's ending tonight at around a little after 9:30. So that one will be gone, but there's still more. So this wouldn't this wasn't towing the line of ghost or not. And then you got $1,000 for a raw, and you got $300 for a 9.6. So pricing is kind of inconsistent, if you ask me. I mean, realistically, that 9.6 is looking pretty good at that kind of price when you see what everything else has been selling for. But it is a 9.6. Who knows? Maybe you can crack it, press it. I don't know. That all said, there was another one of these out there. So interestingly enough, I actually did cover this next book already, but I felt like since we're here, we're talking about this one, I might as well mention it. So talked about this one way back in on episode 60. I think it was 66. Whatever the other Spawn episode was, I talked about this book already, but we're going to do it again. just kind of like an update. No harm, no foul to do one. 222 has this limited edition book. This is, once again, interior artist Simon Kudransky getting a shot to do this limited edition cover. So, August 2012. This one, supposedly, from what I gather, was limited to 400 copies. That's a pretty small number, especially for a Spawn book. A lot of people list it as hardest to find Spawn, etc., etc. I know there have been some other tough ones, that Singapore book, etc. Especially that, the college, the Eastern, whatever. You know what I'm talking about. The special one with McFarlane's alma mater. That said, not here to talk about that book. We already did that. And we already did this one, but we're still going to do it again. CGC Census, though, 92 copies, 59 9/8, 29 6s, and a few others. Copies have sold. I've got 3 sales right here, looking at $1,000 on 32 bids for a 9.4. 9.4. That looks like a PGX 9.4, by the way. 32 bids. $1,800 for a 9.8. $2,600 for a Signature Series 9.8. So, not cheap, but supposedly limited to 400. With that, what's available? We got 2. One that's at auction with no bids yet. Starting bid is $2,200 for a 9.8. They're trying to sell this as a 1 in 50, but this is not a 1 in 50. And once again, what I gathered, it's a limited edition, limited to 400. But that's what you got to check. Sometimes with these listings, they can be wonky. Numbers are off. Numbers can be incorrect. People calling 1 in 25s, 1 in 50s, or vice versa. You just got to roll with it. That said, 9.6. My comic shop has a 9.6 blue label for $2,250. Big bucks on this one. So, if you want it, you got to really break out that wallet. That said, that's all I got for you this week. And as you noticed, most of these found themselves in this hard to find category because there were multiple copies of a lot of these. Surprising to me. I told you, I don't know the outcome of these before I dig in. I just have a list of books and I do my research and grab my snips and throw it together, present it to you with what I find. So I don't know the end result. I don't know what the answers are going to be before I start it. Some weeks we got more ghosts than others. This week, I only found 1 because all of these, 10 of these, all had 2 or more. But the only one that had a single copy at the time of me doing my research was issue 220. The the 1 in 75? McFarlane, black and white. So for this week, this is our lonely ghost. But like I said, if I would have waited and done this deck a day later, that other book might have joined it. Was it the Spawn? The Spawn Savage Dragon 220, 1 in 25 of all things. So the 1 in 25 potentially in the 1 in 75, but not the 1 in 50, which had more than a handful. It's weird, but that's what's out there. It is what it is. Like I said, I don't know the outcome before I start this. I just do the research, present it to you, and it is what it is. That said, thanks for stopping by and checking this out. I appreciate all the support. Hopefully you're still enjoying this as well as everything else here on the channel. We've got plenty of things coming your way. New shows dropping every day, including new shorts. And I got plenty more ideas and some things to present to you guys. But I'm still open to take any suggestions, things you want to see, things you want to see more of, things you want to see less of, whatever. I'm open to criticism as well as helpful suggestions. So let's just talk comics, right? Let's have fun. And this is a hobby. Comics should be fun after all, even when we're talking about big bucks like this. You better be happy with your purchases if you're spending this kind of money on some of these books. So like I said, let's celebrate comics. And with that all said, thanks again, and I'll see you all later with some more content. All right, later.